up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Blindfold Off podcast, where we take off our blindfolds and open our eyes to new views, topics, and discussions. I'm Emmanuel.
And I'm Ernie. This is our first time on camera, so
yeah, it's a special
give
episode.
a big old smile.
Yeah, we got
see my pearly whites.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, and this is also a very special episode too, because we have a very special guest. I've known this man for about probably 4 years. I met him over SoundCloud initially, and he is a musician, he is an entrepreneur, my coach, and most importantly, my friend. Please welcome Andrew Puckett.
Thanks, guys. You really talked me up way more than you need to.
Hey man, you provided me the gems, so I gotta throw them back at you.
I appreciate it.
Respect.
Thanks for having me on.
So first and foremost, I wanna let Andrew introduce himself, who he is, what he does for a living. So yeah, Andrew, take the stage, man.
Who I am. My name is Andrew Puckett. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I just love building teams. I love working with people. I love investing in ideas. I love seeing people grow. I've done some sports. I don't call myself an athlete anymore. I did a race in college. I raced triathlon. I've turned my focus more just to general well-being. I go to the gym. I still run. I still do all the fun stuff, but I'm not a heavy hitter here like Ernie, swinging that bat, hitting those home runs.
Oh, thank you.
I love giving all of the amount of value that I know I can bring on a daily basis. That's really what my mind is set on when I wake up in the morning. Every day I don't really think about my life as a job or a career. I know that probably sounds privileged to say that. I have worked very hard, very, very hard to be in a point where I can say that. But I just think what ways can I give the most amount of value today? Is it talking with people? Is it leading a team? Is it building a business? Is it, being on a podcast? What is it? And then also simultaneously, how can I reap value from the world, as in conversations with you guys, learning from you, learning from the world around me, absorbing things, listening to people who are wiser than me. All of that I think is important to me. And it's hard for me to sum up, genuinely, if I'm going to be completely honest, it's hard for me to sum up what I do and who I am besides I'm me. I love life, and I like living to the fullest.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
I'd give that a 10 out of 10 on a test, honestly.
If you had asked me that 2 years ago, I probably would have said something completely different, because I still felt a lot of social pressures. Both from I had recently graduated from college. I felt a lot of social pressures from the world, from my peers, from social media, to be something. Be like, oh, what are you? Can you put your finger on anything? Like, what are you doing with your life? And I lived like that for a while, and I tried to say, I am this or I am that. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I can confidently claim, no buzzwords, that I'm a serial entrepreneur, but forget titles. I'm a person who likes to learn, who likes to give, who likes to do, who likes to laugh.
Yeah.
Andrew, how much older are you than us? I apologize.
How old are you guys?
I'm 20. Yeah, we're both 20.
Yeah, we're both 20.
Yeah, I'm about 15, 16 months older.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm only 21.
Okay.
Yeah, it honestly surprised me too, because he's so, like, Andrew, you have so much more knowledge than probably I would have at 21, and it's just amazing that all of this, it's like all of these years of knowledge that you got from reading books and reading interviews, it just amazes me and impresses me and inspires me to want to be at that level, to keep learning and to keep being knowledgeable and having a good foundation in education.
Self-education is very key. There's two things I want to say about that. Well, three things. First off, thank you. Secondly is, I don't remember who said it. It might have been Hemingway, but don't quote me on it. But the quote is something along the lines of, the man who doesn't read lives one life, and the man who reads lives 1,000 lives. And, you know, if you can, the more you can read, I think reading is the key to knowledge, and knowledge is the key to wealth. But more importantly, what can you apply? Like for me, I very much respect scholarly people, very much. But I will respect someone much more who's been able to read one thing that's changed their life and the lives of others and apply it to its fullest potential. So don't, you know, if there's anything I could say about reading and knowledge and learning, is don't become so absorbed in, I need to read more. Read enough that you're always just learning a little bit more than you can apply. So you never run out of new things to apply. You know, read one thing a day and figure out how to apply it. I'm pretty sure it was Seneca who said, consume one thing to protect yourself against poverty, or every day consume one thing to protect yourself against poverty, one thing to protect yourself from ill health, and then one thing to protect may have been your spirit, and then choose one of those to digest and live through that day. And I think that's the key thing, is you gotta apply it. What's up?
I'm sorry, but you talked about you are only like 15, 16 months older than us, but you seem as if you were 30, and you basically have all the answers, and telling Sway you have all the answers.
I do not have all the answers.
But anyways, what did you go through and kind of like learn that basically got you to where you are, and basically give you the wisdom, and basically you being comfortable with yourself and understanding who you are?
Do you want the chronological order?
Can you do
both? The short story? Sure. So long story short, I did this thing called life, and I tried to live it to the fullest. So
there's like a day you just
the starting point for that was letting go of the fear of failure, and being able to turn, you know, every failure into some sort of catalyst for something new. That was the starting point, long story short. Chronologically, in terms of seeing the world around me, being able to absorb it, filter it, starting point for that, I can honestly say, for as long as I can remember, the one thing I've prayed for every single day is wisdom. I can't say why that was my choice when I was young. I can thank my parents for instructing me in the way of the Lord and upright paths, even though I've not always been the most upstanding follower of Christ. But praying for wisdom, I think God has definitely been able to show me his blessing and favor in that. I think it's also desire. Solomon says, you know, above all things pursue wisdom, though it may cost you everything. You know, what's more precious than wisdom? That supersedes all wealth and all experience. When you can learn almost without needing to learn, you recognize everything is there in front of you, and you just have to filter it right, or see it in a new light. And when you remain open like that, and you become aware of the world around you, with no ego, no attachment to it, your blindfold, you know, comes off on every layer you could possibly take it off. And that's a cool part. And I think it's also dangerous, because if you do that and you're not rooted in, you know, forget religion for a minute. If you're not rooted in anything morally right, you will go off the deep end, and you'll you know, when you realize what the world really is, you will go the wrong way. And when you take your blindfold off fully, you need to be rooted in some sort of moral upright standing. In my opinion, it should be the word of the Lord, just because that's proven through history time and time again to be the best way to live. If you don't do that, it's gonna go haywire. So after, you know, starting young in terms of my progression, I was always a creative. I was homeschooled my whole life. If I wasn't homeschooled, I probably would have been a juvenile delinquent. I was out of the box. I was creative. I don't think anybody, I didn't know that when I was young, that I would have been a problem child. But my parents did an amazing job at raising me and teaching me. My mom was an amazing teacher. She pushed us very hard to learn. self-learning, big projects we were passionate about as well. She was gracious to let us pick what we wanted. Not, that's a bad way to say it. That's the stereotypical homeschooler. She let us pick what we wanted to study within certain boundaries. And when we were excited about it, she knew that we would learn more. So that's what we did. I had a very diverse background with the traditional STEM things. So I think that kind of aided me learning that younger and starting to see the world through a more advanced, compared to kids that were also my age, where they were at in public school. And then I did high school in 3 years. I was very, very driven as an athlete in high school. I swam for a public high school, even though I was homeschooled. I did run. I did triathlon while I was in high school, and I ended up using that to get into college. I originally had a scholarship for triathlon, and I ended up getting an academic scholarship, which I'm glad, because I had to stop racing in college. I did college in 3 years. I knew what I wanted to do from when I was in my young teens. I couldn't really put a finger on it, but I knew I wanted to create things and work with people and inspire people to do better. Call it coach, call it leader, call it visionary. I couldn't put into words until about 2 or 3 years ago what that really looked like for me, but I knew, and I was working towards it. College, I spent 3 months like super, super sick. They thought it was like maybe a long-lasting viral disease. I collapsed in a race. My heart was like almost not beating. And after that point, I said, all right, I know that I need to go fully into entrepreneurship, into music, into doing what I spent the last few years of my life doing. Busted my butt with that. Graduated. I had a full-time job, and I quit 2 weeks in because I was looking in the mirror, and I hated being there. It wasn't the environment for me. It was using my degree, thought it was going to be good. I left, and I said, screw it. I'm graduated college. I'm 19. I don't have a job anymore. I'm going to make this work. And I just spent the last few years of my life hustling and learning everything I possibly could and believing in the vision. And now I find myself here talking to you guys.
So
sweet. That's amazing, man.
From that, I have 3 questions. My first question is right after your race, let's say you collapsed and you said, I knew I needed to be an entrepreneur. Truthfully, I know like sometimes it doesn't really go like you just know what you have to do. Was it like that for you? Or was it more so you did a couple things and you're just like, I should probably go be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I've been doing entrepreneurship things since I was 5, with my brother, and just just creative entrepreneurial ventures my whole life. So it was less of a I need to go make myself an entrepreneur and more of a I know I can do this, and I don't have my like at that point I was thinking my body doesn't have the physical strength to sustain the level of athletics that I was racing at that time. So instead of pouring all of that time and hours into training and racing, what I mean by that is I was very clear. I was like, I have to pour this into music and into other things because I wanted to be a professional full-time triathlete, Olympic pipeline. That was always one of my big goals. And I said, that's not going to be a possibility anymore when I'm young. So I need to shift focus. I'm not going to go work a desk job. I know I'm made for more than that, and I'm going to prove it. So I started taking that time and energy and effort and putting into other ventures and music. At that point, it was mostly music. It was like 90% music, 10% other thoughts.
Okay. My second question was, when you looked at yourself, let's say you might have looked at yourself like realistically in the mirror, but when you looked at yourself in the mirror, was it more of like you just felt in your heart like, yeah, I'm not gonna be a normal person, or I just know I'm made for things better than that?
Yeah, it was.
Was it more so a feeling? Because
weird.
I feel like, I'm sorry for like interrupting you, but I have to just expand on it a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. But because I know some people, the way people describe it, as in people on social media and YouTube and stuff like that, they describe it as if they just look at themselves and they automatically just know. In reality, I know it's not that. It's more so like, for myself, it's more so a feeling, and combined with my morals and my knowledge at the time of what I really want to do. How was it like that for you as well, or was it?
Yeah, it was like that, and it was also realistic. I did look in the mirror, and I had tears coming down my face because I said, this is so horrible. Like, I can't recognize me in this suit, wearing a tie, standing in front of me. I love suits and ties, but not there. And I was like, this is not what I went to freaking school to do. Like, I didn't put years of my life working at what I wanted to do to just end up in this position here. More than that, I think the reason I could say I actually physically felt that is because I knew inside that, you know, I have this vision that I believe was entrusted to me. I don't believe that it's my vision. I believe it was entrusted to me, and it was one of those moments where, as weird as it may sound, God was like, you know, either you build it or someone else is going to do it. But I've called you to do it. You know, I'm not gonna curse you for not doing it, but you have everything that it takes to do it. And so I felt like part of me was missing by not being able to pursue that, even though it was only like a few weeks that I was really not going after it. It was almost like I had tied my own noose around my neck. And I do not say that lightly in any way, shape, or form, but I would have gone into severe depression and maybe worse if I had stayed in a situation like that. I'm at the point now in my life where I think that if I had to do that, to make a sacrifice to keep driving other things forward, like funding wise, I could do it. But at the point, I was not there.
Okay. And why do you feel that way? Was it just because of the headspace you were in? Was it after? Okay. How was it like having the realization that you weren't going to be this triathlete? Because honestly, at the moment, this is a little personal, but this is what I've been struggling with. I've been struggling. So my dream has always been to become a professional baseball player, and I am now realizing that that's not going to happen, just because the way things have been going and the way God's been lining stuff up. Mm-hmm. How did you deal with the realization? Because me, it's more so basically grieving and just accepting that what happened, and it's time to move on.
So I'm gonna avoid you the bore of how I came to the realization. I'm just gonna state the realization that I came to, and I want to encourage you is, if the plans set in store for you are not to become a professional baseball player, that means that there are way bigger and more impactful things and impactful ways you can leave your mark on the world than through professional baseball. And that should be exciting. Mm-hmm. And for me, I came to the realization that there's so much more to me, and that focusing purely on professional sports would have limited me and limited my impact on the world and the people around me and the amount of value I could bring so much that it'd be like slapping God in the face. I don't know. I mean, triathlon's a long game. There's pros out there who are racing in their mid-30s. Like, I still have time. If that's really in his plans for me, then there's still time. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe not, but I would be okay if it did. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But the impact you can make on the world is going to be so much greater if those things don't line up. And I think when you're truly pursuing a life of giving the most amount of value to the world and leaving the best and biggest impact you can, like that's a good frame to see the world through, because you can accept things that haven't happened that you wanted to, because you realize your impact is needed somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like that one quote that people always say, when God closes a door, there's always another window open, something like that.
Sometimes having less options is better.
That's true. Because it gives you, would the answer to that be because it gives you the simpler, or basically gives you simple options, I suppose? Like
less stress?
Like less stress as well.
It just helps you make a decision.
Yeah.
Life is about making decisions. That's it. Like, what else is life about? It's making decisions. You know, to save or to spend, to give or to take. Like, it's that simple.
That's true. Damn. I also feel like in my heart as well, like I always say this, like a normal person is the person that works a 9 to 5 and just absolutely hates their job, just works for the weekend and just does that process up until, let's say, retirement or up until they die. And in my heart, as you as well, I just kind of felt like I'm not made to do that. Like God put me on this earth to be great. And in my heart, I had to really do some digging. I was just like, well, Ernie, what do you like to do? I don't know. I like helping people. I was like, all right, that's a good one. Then what else do you like to do? I like training people, like exercise and stuff like that. They're like, okay, well then maybe that's what you should do. Then it's almost like the signs started lining up. Like people started asking me more questions, and like friends started asking me and hitting me up about stuff like that. I was like, well, maybe that's something I can do. Then eventually that realization came as well with baseball. It's like, truthfully, I know it's not going to bring me happiness because I enjoy helping people and helping people improve themselves, such as yourself, and just helping that person gain what they really truly want. And if it needs to be like, let's say a physique they really like, or run a mile under like 7 minutes, I can help them do that. And I would take pride in that because I'm giving that, or not so much giving that person what they want, but helping that person achieve their goal. And it's almost like a different satisfaction. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like a different satisfaction from that. And I can't even put it into words. It's just happy that someone else benefited from your helping. Yep.
And I can say something that I want Emmanuel to talk about a little bit too, because he can attest to this. The starting, and I can say for men and women, I though I primarily solely work with men in terms of mentor coach stuff, is the starting point of greatness, keyword starting point, is vision. Because you can toil and you can go through horrible things, but if you have a vision, all of it's worth it. You can work a 9 to 5 for 20 years because you know your vision of breaking out and breaking free. That's how it has to happen. As long as you have a vision of where you're going, that's the starting point. It's definitely not the ending point, and it's not the middle, but it's the start. And so, Emmanuel, I know that you've very much been working hard on ironing your vision, and maybe you can talk a little bit in terms of how beneficial having a vision is to going through seasons of life, to weathering storms, also just finding joy and excitement in sometimes the mundane activities of building things.
Yeah, honestly, so for me, just with my vision that I have, so my vision is to become the greatest creator that I can be, whether that's music, videos, visuals, artwork. And with a lot of what I'm doing right now, like going back to the 9 to 5 job, for example, like for summer, I don't want to go back working at a restaurant, but I know that it's necessary for me to make that money. Like the means justifies the ends.
Yep.
So that money that I'm making from working at that restaurant basically all day for every day of the summer, at least I'm going to have fat pockets by the end of it. So, and I'll have those pockets to fuel what I need to create music. If I want to buy some artwork, it'll fuel the opportunity for me to buy these different programs and rent these different programs that I use, like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro. So I know that with my vision in my mind, that it allows me to keep going. It allows me to keep going through the mud, because I know that like that mud is only temporary. Like I can wipe it off easily. Mm-hmm. And that mud represents a 9 to 5 job. It represents going through hardships, because I know that I'll be clean. I'll be stronger through it. And what we like to talk about too is grit. Like you and me love to talk about grit, just going through it and just remembering your purpose and the vision that you have for yourself. That's just going to keep spurring you on. And if you know people, like I know you, and you've been encouraging me throughout this ride, and even when I'm feeling down and depressed, you tell me that, like say for example, so an example of when I'm feeling down and depressed is when I feel like I'm not reaching out to as many people as I want to, because I would always compare myself back to freshman year of college. Like, man, I was so outgoing. What happened? Now I'm so secluded. Now I'm like a hermit now, just working on my own projects. But something that you reminded me is that there's always seasons. There's a season for growth. There's a season for branching out. And an analogy that me and Ernie talked about too was the tree analogy. A tree can't branch out before it grows its roots. And that analogy just sticks with me, and it makes me think about how all these different seasons that I'm going through, it's all for the greater purpose toward my vision.
Yeah. I love that. Well said.
Thanks.
Andrew, what would you say? I know I've never really talked to, like, maybe the conversations that you and Andrew really had, but like, what would you say when you first got Emmanuel? What did Emmanuel look like, and what is it kind of the stuff you kind of struggled with when you first got him?
That's a good question.
Let me think back.
He smiled.
So I think the first thing that I noticed was a lot of, and don't take this the wrong way because I'm going to follow it up with something, is a lack of self-confidence because of a lack of vision in terms of what's really possible. And and not in like he wasn't confident as a human being, but he wasn't confident with who he's called to be. And it takes exploration, and it takes expanding your boundaries and learning more to really figure out what's possible, what you want to do, who you're called to be, and through that building the rigors and self-discipline of defining what that looks like for you, because that's how you are choosing to live your life, and rewriting your narrative. There's such a huge thing that young men go through that nobody likes to talk about, and it's leaving school and becoming a professional in your field. You have to entirely rewrite your narrative. Your life doesn't change every 4 or 5 months anymore. You don't get summer break. You're not surrounded by girl. I mean, I don't know. We're all followers of Christ here, so this might be irrelevant, but you're not surrounded by girls who are like, yeah, we're just like, friends with benefits at school. Like,
yeah.
There's a real world out there where the rules are completely different. And to rewrite your narrative in that season, specifically like the guys that you guys are talking to, your audience, that's the season that's coming, and it's very, very difficult to navigate. And so I think Emmanuel is starting to see that had to happen at some point. And I think the coolest thing was seeing the self-initiated learning of just what that real world looks like, financially, spiritually, relationally with people, professionally with his career and his aspirations. So I think that there's been a lot of growth that he's done for himself. And I think there's a lot of growth that's come just simply because he's learned more. Like that's the cool part about wisdom, is that once you get a little bit of it, it grows. It compounds indefinitely, because when you learn one thing, 2 more things become apparent to you, and each of those 2 things, 2 new things become apparent to you. So your adoption rate for wisdom and applying it in the real world is exponential. And so you could toil for 2-3 years just to learn as many things and read as many books as you can and apply them to your situation, and see nothing significant change, and then in 1 week read or consume one thing that puts everything else into the perfect context that makes everything change. So that's the cool part about it, is it's not a linear function. And wisdom and the application of knowledge, it's not linear. So we measure everything in life up until this point in our lives, young 20s, late teens. It's linear. It's like, what are your grades in school? How old are you? What was your place on this team? It's always like, you're within this top percentage and you're a winner. That's it. But out there in the real world, you can be a failure for 20 years, chipping away and chipping away and chipping away, and then go from bottom to top instantly. And that's what people don't realize. That happens on a micro scale, and it happens on a macro scale.
Emmanuel, how would you say you've grown from what he said? Like, not so much like how you've grown, but like some of the stuff you've been going through. Because you say you've been with him for 4 or 5 years. Like, what's kind of the stuff like you talk about like almost each session? Like, is it do you see how he's been like you've been chipping away and like how he's been saying that? Like, do you see like almost every single time you talk to Andrew, do you feel like you're getting better and almost growing?
Oh yeah, I most definitely am. First of all, Andrew,
Side note, we've only been working together for about 6 months now.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 or 7 months, but we've known each other through music
okay, that's
for
my
like 4
fault.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So first of all, I just want to thank Andrew for giving me that reminder about how my self-confidence was lacking because I didn't have a vision. So that reminder just, and where I'm at right now, I'm super confident to be who I am, what I'm doing with this podcast, making music, making more relationships with people that I never thought I would have. And Ernie, going back to what you said about, so honestly, I hit up Andrew because I knew that he was credible. I knew that he knew what he was talking about. Like he already was pursuing a bunch of different endeavors. It was at the point I hit him up, it was more than music for him. It was building relationships. It was entrepreneurship. It was just going into different avenues of everything.
Okay.
And I saw that and I admired that because I wanted to grow. I didn't want to just be stuck in one position. So I hit him up and then we talked, and the first few calls we talked about was purpose, finding your why. And what I mean by finding your why is why you do things, because once you find out why you do things, it becomes a lot easier for how you do things and what things you want to do. So we spent a good first chunk talking about our purpose and finding our why. And then we also started to dive deeper into finances, because I remember we would go through books such as, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, all those books about finance and how to manage your money. And
Intelligent Investor, Winning the Money Game. There's keep talking, Emmanuel. There's something I want to add to that when you're done.
Yeah. And then after that, I started to get a little busier with college and stuff, with all these projects. So we kind of took a step aside from the investment books. I still have that knowledge in my head, but then we started talking about growing towards who we want to be more and more of every day. And it really helped shape my vision. It really helped me to see things differently. Like I would see this thing as something negative, and then Andrew would help guide me to see it as a positive thing. And he helped me to be patient, remember my vision, trust the process, trust in God, always be grateful. And ever since then, I'm just super confident, super at peace at where I'm at right now. And I know that I can trust God and I can trust in the process because of where he's placed me. Like I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for God bringing Andrew into my life.
I appreciate that. The one thing I wanted to add when you're talking was about the financial piece. The reason that I'm very, very passionate about financial things is partially because my parents did an amazing job instructing me in proper money management. But more importantly, when it comes to working with people, it's because as a young man, if you're not focused and understand finances and how the financial world really works, you're going to get screwed over in so many ways. You're going to screw yourself over through life. And I think the first step, and it's not about money, but being a good steward of your finances, which money is, for most people, it's the highest thing on the totem pole. And it's the closest thing that we usually put, let's be honest, like for guys, it's usually money. It's probably money, sex, and power are the things that are the closest to becoming idols for us. And if you can't steward those, then you're going to destroy everything else in your life. And so there's that stance, and then there's a stance of being a high value man, which I know you guys talk about and care about passionately, is if you don't start young in terms of managing your money properly, investing, knowing how to invest, not losing money, like being smart with it, you know, what's going to say you're going to start when you're 30 or 40 or 50? Like, the younger you start, those years are an amazing advantage, and learning to just chip away. And I think it teaches a lot of responsibility, and it teaches a lot of patience, you know, because there's very few under 20-year-olds out there who are making good, like, let's just say over 70K a year. And there's also, you know, realistically, there's very few post-grads who are making six figures or more. I think there's definitely many out there, but in the grand scheme of things, there's few. So learning to manage your money when there's not a ton there means you're going to be much better when more starts coming. And then in terms of trusting the process, you know, as cliche, you know, tortoise versus the hare type of situation as it is, you know, if someone were to say, you know, who would you want guiding you up to the top of Mount Everest? You know, a guide who every 10 steps looks up towards the top, or a guide who knows where the top is, has a map to get there, and just focuses on the next step. You know, some people would say, oh, you know, I'm going to get to the top faster because this guy's going to be able to see the best route and look up. I like to look at it as a different light, because the person who's focused just on the step in front of them and has a map and a plan to get there, they're going to keep you safer. You're going to stay on track. You're going to be on the right route that they know works. You know, fast tracking things never works in the long run, ever. It always comes back on you. And if you're climbing Mount Everest and you go a route you've never been before because you think it's going to get you there faster, chances are someone's going to get injured, or you're going to get lost, or you're going to figure out you're going to get close to the top and realize that you have to backtrack. You know, stick with the plan, stick with the process, just find your next foothold, know your next 5 moves, and that's it.
Andrew, you, on my headphones, my AirPods, I have what you listen to and what you watch is who you become. What kind of stuff do you watch? Because me and Emmanuel, I'll talk about more specifically myself, but I watch The Roommates. I watch Fresh and Fit Miami, and I also watch Kevin Samuels, but I don't watch Kevin Samuels like a super ton just because Kevin Samuels is Kevin Samuels. Yeah, he's Kevin Samuels. But scale the 1 to 10, huh? That's so funny. But anyways,
so your question was,
what do you watch, and like, do you let certain people talk to you? Because I know I was watching an episode of The Roommates, and Hafiz, he's the host of The Roommates, and he goes, I don't let certain people talk to me just because I don't need all these voices and energies and different things impacting me, because whether you like to accept it or not, but those things do impact you, and whether it be in a good way or a bad way. So let me nerd out on some audio engineering terms here. Emmanuel, you know what a noise gate is, right?
Yeah, I do know what a noise gate is.
My noise gate threshold is set to like 0 dB. And I do not turn it down unless I see something that I want to come through. I have a very small circle. I don't actively pursue. I mean, I pursue new friendships. I love the community at my church. That's most of my community. That's about it. I don't spend extensive time with anybody except my key 4 or 5 people, which are all guys that I very much respect. I would die on the front lines with, and I listen to their opinions and I value them. On top of that, I have 10 to 15. I don't call them advisors. Some of them are business partners. One is my dad, one is my grandfather, but people, elders, advisors that I more than respect. You know, that I aspire to be like in ways. And I have that from a financial perspective, a business perspective, a spiritual perspective. But these are people that I actively pursue asking questions to when I'm going through something. And then on top of that, there's really no other personal influence that I let get to me. Partially being off social media is I was done drowning out all of the BS. I was like, I have to actively try to drown it out. I'm just going to cut it out entirely. I'm done. So I keep a very small circle. I'm relatively exclusive with pursuing those new relationships with people. Not in a stingy way. I just try to be protective of my time and energy. And then in terms of things that I read or watch, going back to that noise gate comment, is I'll research things, and if I see something that really catches my attention, I will look into it a little bit more. I'll make sure that it's, the author or the host or the speaker is accredited and what else they've done, and then I'll go consume their stuff. I do try to go through 3 audiobooks a week. I used to listen to a podcast a lot called The Art of Manliness by Brett McKay. I think that one's still great. Lots of practical knowledge. It's he's good. I don't. If you know Fresh and Fit in Miami, you've probably heard of Entrepreneurs in Cars, Rich Cooper. No, I like his stuff. I can't endorse everything he says because he's very anti-Christian lifestyle, which, yes, there's biological facts to some of those things he says. But needless to say, I can't endorse everything, but I think his practical application of just be better, just shut up and work. I like it. I would not consider him one of those advisors. I would not go to him with personal questions. I value the practical application of, the biological nature of being a man. I like that. I love John Maxwell. I love Simon Sinek. I'm trying to think of the serial authors that I've read. I've moved away, honestly, in the past 6 months, I've very much moved away from the self-help, business help, get a vision books, and very, very much have moved into nitty-gritty, here's how you actually apply management practices and principles. Here's how, I asked a few people who teach master's programs in the different areas that I was interested in. I said, what's the top 10 books you could offer? And then I just went to those more specific resources. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that you take general knowledge and you build your base, you build your vision, you understand the world, and then you specialize. And so finding key things, resources, books, video series, master classes that help you truly specialize, that's when you start to see a lot of exponential results.
Okay. That's true. So would you say that the era of self-help books and self-vision books, would you say that's a specific...
It's a season. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's a season of growth. That's a season. And I feel like you right now, you're more so get it done rather than I'm almost done with learning my vision. I know my vision now. It's time to get my vision done.
So yes. Now you're getting to the nitty-gritty.
And the way I like to say it is, there's people who need to wake up still, and there's people who are already awake who need help getting out of bed, and there's people who are already awake and running.
Okay.
My passion in terms of working with people is to help the people who are already awake get out of bed and start running. And so there's people out there, the life coaches and mentors that are going to help the most amount of people are the ones who are helping people wake up. I just don't have the skill set to truly do that. I'm a little bit more harsh. I will never say anything to somebody that I haven't said to myself, but I'm sure Emmanuel can attest to some of the things I've said. If it was a no context conversation, you'd be like, wow, this dude is an absolute a-hole. But I very much do it all out of a place of love, and because I know that sometimes we need wake up calls and we need to get things done. But I agree with your statement of seasons. And I think that those 3 seasons of wake up and then learn how to get out of bed and then start running. The running is the most fun part, but it's also the hardest. If you think that getting out of bed is hard in the morning, wait till you're on hill rep number 7. You feel like you're going to throw up and it's still dark and freezing cold outside. And you're like, well, I really wish that I had not taken rolling out of bed as the hardest thing I was going to do today.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. Going back to what you said about how, okay, this is just a random thought, just a super random thought, kind of off tangent, but going back to what you said about if you were to take what you said about being harsh, or not necessarily being harsh, but kind of being blunt, being blunt and just something blunt that I remember what you said that could be funny if taken out of context is, if you don't look good, then girls won't like you.
That's true though. It's facts. Like, it's facts.
Like you said, no offense, Emmanuel, don't take this in the wrong way, but if you don't look good, girls won't like you.
No, and I think if you listen to Fresh and Fit, I mean that's
facts.
That's Fit's
true.
Thing. He's like, you gotta look good. You gotta be well put together, and you gotta be fit.
You gotta be ripped. You gotta be.
Yeah, there's a biological factor to it, and then there's a real world application of a man or a young man who can discipline himself to the point of shaping his physique. He can probably shape other things in life as well. Things like his finances, his business, his relationships. And I don't remember the author who wrote it. Golly gee. But the quote is something along the lines of, you can't just dream up the person you want to be. You have to hammer and forge that person into existence. And I think that's cool. Like, that's a super exciting thing to me, of like, you get to wake up every day and just absolutely shape yourself.
Yeah. Honestly, the Fresh and Fit Miami. Okay, I have two things to talk about. The Fresh and Fit Miami, some of the stuff he talks about, like, he wants to be polygamous and like stuff like that with all those girls. It's kind of like, it's kind of mind blowing. It's like something I've never thought about. I'm like, I probably shouldn't even think about that, just because it's like, it sounds almost so far fetched. Like, you can have all these girls and they don't care if you have all these girls and you're just one guy, like, cause you're such a man that, and you have all these assets and stuff to take care of them and you just don't care. Like, I just can't fathom that. Like, that's, and some of the stuff he talks about too, like, along with he uses like biology and stuff like that to like to justify some of the actions that he does, and some of the actions that, to basically justify like some of the bad actions he has. And I'm like, okay, there's a certain point to where you can stop and think, because you are an adult and you can make those general assumptions because you know the difference between right and wrong. Because
I'm gonna make some comments about that when you're done.
Okay. Honestly, it was just difficult to fathom. It's like crazy. And the second thing is, have you read the Way of the Superior Man by David Deida?
David Deida, yes, I have.
Okay. There's a lot of like concepts and stuff like that I just don't like. I'm not old enough, or either like I haven't been around like women enough for me to like get those concepts, such as energies. And like, he talked about Shiva, the god, like, of the male god and stuff like that. Like, that stuff was like really foreign. Like, the first time I read it, I was like, what the heck is he talking about? Like, and I had to really like actually pay attention to what he was saying. I had to read it like maybe twice. It's a weird
book.
It very is, yeah.
In terms of the female energy, there's one section that I think should be taught to every single male in the history of existence. And that is that female energy. And I'm not saying women, because there's masculine and feminine energy, and I think that women are more or less the embodiment of feminine energy for the most part, though it's not always the case, whether I agree with it or disagree with it. But feminine energy is like the weather. It's always changing. It is not constant, and it does not want to come to any sort of conclusion.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's facts. Like, that's facts.
It's an amazing realization to come to that. And the point that David Deida makes throughout the whole book is feeling. Being able to be an open vessel as a male. Your masculine energy is rooted. You know who you are, but you're also an open vessel. You can accept and you can give freely, and you're not affected by any of it. And so to embrace that, and to also understand from a feminine perspective that female energy is constant. It doesn't come to a conclusion. He makes a state. It's like the weather. It blows this way and then it blows that way. And if you ask her how her day is, you asking her how her day is changes her response. Mm-hmm. She starts to think about her day, and then it changes her reaction to her day, and it leads her down a rabbit hole. I think that's a beautiful thing, and when you start to understand and be able to see the practical application of how to just feel a situation. And it's not about what she's saying with her words, it's about what she's saying with her energy and with her heart. It's fascinating to see how much that changes the interaction you can have with any woman. Like, I don't care if that's your mom or your sister or your girlfriend or your spouse. Like, when you understand that's how feminine energy is, it changes the interactions you have, and it's cool. The other thing I was going to say about your comments about fresh and fit and the comments he makes is, I'm going to say something that's going to be very provocative depending on the listener.
Okay.
Like, he's a self-proclaimed Muslim, and the Islam faith very much accepts and it actively encourages polygamy, and it actively encourages the treatment of women in ways that I cannot agree with morally and spiritually. So I take everything that he's saying with a grain of salt if you are a believer. I think take everything in the world with a grain of salt, regardless of your religious affiliation or spiritual place. But in terms of, I can say another thing, take it with a grain of salt, is he can say everything he's saying and he's right, but there's like 0.01% of men in the world really genuinely have the privileges that he talks about. And unless I'm missing something, I don't think he's one of them. I don't think he's an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or one of those level of people. He might get there. I have no doubt that he could. Like, I'm not trying to hate on him in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying I think it's a little far-fetched to be making statements he has, and to say everyone's fully okay with it and they're fine with it, because they're not. It takes a level that the chances, not saying we can't, but the chances of any of us here achieving that level is so stacked against us. That's okay. I can also say that I think there's a level of masculinity that you achieve that cannot be achieved without commitment. A commitment of resolution, that when you make that commitment, I am not married, but my brother is recently married, and it might make me a little emotional talking about it, but just to see, the commitment that close to someone. I've seen people get married before. My parents obviously are married, but like to see somebody close to my age make that commitment, it elevates your level of resolute masculinity and the strength that you say you're going to have and you have to bring to the world in a way that you cannot get by floating between women and spinning plates. And there's a lot of men want to justify their inability to make a decision and commit to it by saying, oh, it's because I have resources or because I want this. And like, I can't say that, being a man, that we're hardwired to be attracted to women, and there's a lot of attractive women out there, but can you forge and iron yourself into a way that says, no, I'm making this decision because I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to give to it. It's countercultural. And the idea of having multiple women, people think, oh, it's like this new revolution. Like, men these days are like, oh, it's this revolutionary way because people have been married. No, for the past few generations, we've been in a primarily Christian, Judeo-Christian rooted society in America, where getting married and being committed was standard. The rest of history, dude, it's always been polygamy. So the idea of that countercultural narrative, which has now become the cultural narrative, and now the countercultural narrative is polygamy in America. Let's stay countercultural here. Like, there's good things that happen when you commit. Now, I still agree with some statements of, be careful of the women that you choose to actually partner with. Like, choose a high value woman, be the highest value man you can be, but make that commitment. Like, that's my personal stance on it.
Facts.
I agree with that 100%, because especially if you're giving that type of information and you have such a big following such as he does, people are definitely going to take what you say like as literal. And it's and like, I don't know about you, but if you have when I was 18, I'm like, what, I can have like 10 girls and they'll all be fine with it? Like, come on, like, no, dude, like, it's not reality. And there's definitely
not good. It's not healthy.
No,
for you or for them.
There's definitely.
And if we're on the topic of masculinity, something I've been saying for about a year and a half now, fully confidently, is I fully believe, and this is a conversation maybe for another time, but I fully believe that almost all, if not all, of the problems in our society in America, at the root of it is caused because of men not being good men. You know, the women that go and sleep around and break men's hearts and think that that's okay happened because a father left and couldn't be responsible with his decision. And it happened because a young man broke her heart so many times because he couldn't be responsible. You know, cause and effect here. Let's look at the cause. The reason why there's so many people in poverty, it's not because there was a wage gap in the 50s. It's because people started slacking off and men didn't want to provide, and they started doing things. If you're going to go to a strip club every day after work and blow a couple hundred, and you're only making a couple hundred every day, and then all of a sudden your family's broke and you lose the house and you go into debt, like generationally, I don't know if that happened. Like, and that's never happened in my family. I can't say from experience, but like, what do you expect is going to happen? It's the man's decision to make those things happen. And I think that the chain reaction and the cataclysmic destruction of our society is very much rooted because men cannot be good men.
That's very true, because Kevin Samuels makes or he makes the claim that is like, this world was built by men, but then you can also have a world built by men, but you have to accept the reality that they caused and some of the stuff and effects that happened with that. And it's definitely, I can definitely see some of our faults, and you can see throughout history, because if you want to say men made the world and ran the world, then you have to accept some of the faults and stuff they made as well.
Right.
Partial responsibility. I 100% agree. You can't claim, like, let's say you make a song, Emmanuel, like you make a song and you're like, yeah, I made everything in here, and people are pointing out the flaws. You know, this part is mixed off and there's grain in the background and the reverb's off. Well, you know, that's not my problem. That's because the reverb tool was messed up. Like, you cannot have partial responsibility as a man in life, right, and expect good things.
Like, sure, you can continually blame women. That's what I've been hearing a lot, honestly. Like, I do watch those shows and I respect them, but it's honestly a lot of blame, and it's just not enough accountability.
Right.
And it's always trying to find an enemy, and that's within society nowadays. That's a societal problem, just trying to find an enemy and demonize them and try to almost blame somebody, when in reality it's everyone's fault. And some of the stuff we caused is because of us, and some of the stuff in history is still affecting us now, and that's the way people should look at it, honestly, because it's true. It's not, there's nothing wrong with
now,
that.
Yeah. That makes me ask the question, is it right then to blame ourselves? Because I've certainly made mistakes. I've broken people's hearts before. I know I've actively lived out things that I don't think are the best way to live out as a man. But the reoccurring effect and the way that there's now this huge, separation between men and women, and we're butting heads all the time, and they want to live this way and we want to live this way. I can't blame myself for that, because that was generations before. Have I added to the problem? I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But what I can do is say, from this day forward, how I live, I'm going to try to understand it. I'm going to understand why they're like that. That doesn't compromise your masculinity at all. To understand her, to understand feminine energy, to understand women. In fact, as David Data would say, like, you have to be able to be fluid like that. You have to understand. You have to want to understand it, because it's part of life. It's the yin and the yang. It always will be. So maybe, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? Like, how do we as young men go into a world that's so separated, where women want to blame us for everything and we want to blame them for everything? How do we find our footing in that? What are your thoughts?
Firstly, I think that's like a perception reality thing. I'm going to say that just because of media and stuff like that, because not going to lie, on TikTok, all I see is like, oh, you're a simp, or I hate all men, but you know what I mean? Like those trends. But I think that's a perception thing, and people definitely get caught in that. And I think just because we see it so much, that's not the majority of people. The majority of people, such as like, let's say me, you, and Emmanuel, we're definitely smart enough and intelligent enough to tell the difference, and definitely intelligent enough to make those assumptions and stuff. Not those assumptions, but more so the right distinctions between the men and the women, and we know what's happening in reality, and we're not getting caught into that funnel. You know what I mean? And I feel like if the more people, most people do know that, and I feel like if we're gonna eventually find somebody like that, because that's just who we are, and that's just the energy we give off, and that's the energy we'd probably we'd want as well, because I know David Data's like, if you like, maybe this time during the season you want someone spicier, just says like that, or you need someone cooler, or if you're a level-headed person, you're gonna want a level-headed person. That's true. And I think for us, that's exactly what we're gonna get, just because we know the difference, and we know. I don't feel like we have time to deal with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because you yourself, I don't think you have time to like think about, why is she mad? Why is he mad? Why she's mad? You're like, no, this is the problem. You can either accept it or not, and that's reality. And that's fact.
And I know that my girlfriend's gonna listen to this, so I can say that she's been an absolute blessing in my life, from the way of being able to understand myself better, my interaction with feminine energy, as well as just a human being in my life and an amazing partner and my best friend. But that being said, there's times where I can take a step back and say there is a problem, right? No relationship is perfect. There is a problem, and I need to take the time to understand it. But a majority of the time is neither of us have time. She's a very high accomplished in her own field, and she's pursuing many different things. So neither of us have time for the petty problems of, you didn't respond to me, and so on and so forth. If I want something, I'm going to pursue it. And so, I will take the time when I can and when I have it to pursue this relationship, to pursue her, and vice versa. And the reason I wanted to say that was because there's been times where, as I've become more established, I've noticed, and she might chuckle about this because I know she'll listen to it, I've noticed situations that would have been problems for anyone else, including me in prior years or prior times, that were just not a problem anymore, because there's a certain level of acceptance. And maybe this goes to attest to kind of what Fresh and Fit and Richard Cooper talk about, is like there's a certain level of change that happens when, as a man, your stature starts to develop. Women do put up with certain things and comments, and their perception changes, and they'll say and respond in different ways. That comment wasn't specifically related to my girlfriend, but I've seen small bits of those things in my relationship as I've grown, as she's grown. And I think it's cool, to actually understand that that's a reality and to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the question you asked?
So yeah, going back to the question that you asked about how can we kind of address the problem, honestly, just looking at social media is a very toxic place for how it kind of tells people how to see certain people. Because I know that on Twitter, for example, there's always these tweets that say stuff like men are a problem, and they get 100K retweets. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating, man. It's so frustrating, especially on social media, seeing everyone believe these lies. And honestly, I guess a way that we can kind of fix this stigma is to just address it. Just kind of bring in some facts, I guess. But then again, it's hard because no one wants to hear facts at the same time.
And people get offended when their lack of knowledge shows, and that's when people don't get too high in emotions and either storm out or they just stop listening. And that's where it's you gotta like deliver the information properly, and it's so hard too because you don't want to have to think about cater to everybody because it's difficult.
There's a comedian whose name is Bill Burr. I can't endorse everything he says, but he does make one comment. He says, as a man, you've won the argument when she changes the topic. When she changes the subject, you've won. It's real.
That is real, yeah.
Yeah.
It's real. It's so fun. So, me and Emmanuel were we don't have girlfriends yet, so we're just messing around. Sometimes we watch the animes, we're like, oh, dang, dude, why can't somebody what was it? Call me a dummy or something like that.
Yeah, there's all these slice of life anime that we watch, and we like it at the same time, but we don't like watching these slice of life anime at the same time because the main character has a girlfriend, and we're just like, oh man, if only we could be like that in real life.
So what So like, how did you find your girlfriend? How do you know, like, and like, not like almost like she's the one, but it's like, how did you know you can invest yourself in this person as well?
So I met her. There was a coffee shop that I would go to do work at, and she was a barista there. I know it's cliche, but I thought she was very cute. I did not talk to her outside of ordering a drink. But when I knew that I was like, I'd like to ask this girl out, I don't know. I try to play all my cards all the time. And so I got to know every single one of her coworkers before I talked to her. Hey. And I just would talk around. If I was there, I would talk around her. And I know what psychologically that can do to people, of like, you just start to feel like you almost know this person, but you're not talking to them. And so when you do talk to them, there's less barrier there. I knew that she probably would get asked for her number, or she's very cute. She's very attractive, and she's extremely outgoing and friendly. So I'm like, I have to be different. So anyways, that happened for about a month, and then I was ordering, and I had a loyalty program at this coffee shop, and she's putting my stuff, and she's like, oh, what's your email address? What's your name? And I said, oh, do you want my number as well? And she just kind of stopped, and I didn't think she was going to get it at first. And she was like, I think I do need your number. So I gave her my number, and then we went on a first date. I find out that she was a professional ballet dancer.
Wow.
She was still in college. She's
awesome.
doing that. She's working part-time. She's going to school. It's like, that's the type of person that I want to, those are the type of people that I want in my life, male or female. High achievers who have a vision and a purpose, and they know what they want to do. And she's an artist. I'm an artist. Awesome. I think she's attractive, and vice versa. And then as I just really, you don't know somebody on the first date, but as I got to know her, there's just a lot of personality that meshed, life experiences that we had individually experienced or shared, good family life. Like, she's not one of those girls that has, daddy problems and, all sorts of baggage that you don't want in a relationship. So, we're both crazy, don't get me wrong. She's crazy. But I mean that in the most endearing way. I am crazy too. But she just seemed like a good fit of as a woman. She wants kids at some point. She's down for the long haul. So yeah, there was just a lot of overlapping things that I said, I could mess this all up and break her heart and break my heart and say no and go a different direction, or I could just invest in it and make it happen. So yeah. I'm
gonna get back to the questions I wanted to ask, because we just had a good conversation, but I really want to ask this question.
Okay.
Okay. I feel like I have a respect issue, and I feel like I don't come off as people respect me, and I've been kind of struggling with that. What do you do when people don't respect you, and is it more so like a feedback of you don't respect yourself enough for you allow these people to treat you that way, or is it more so you haven't, or they don't know you, or what's your kind of take on that, respect? And what do you do when someone disrespects you and stuff like that?
So I will not ask for an experience right now. The first thing I'm going to say is, let's start with I'm going to go with men here. All right. Why do men respect other men? Because they're good at something. And because people follow them. And you can tell very, very quickly. And because they respect themselves. I think the starting point is being able to respect yourself and to shape and to forge yourself into something. Now, you can tell when other people follow someone. You can tell in their energy, in their tone of voice, how they respond to things, the way they walk, the way they communicate, that they're a leader, right? Mm-hmm. I see it in other people. There's people in my life that I very much respect because of that. And I've seen it more recently happen in my life. A massive transformation. There's people who follow me. There's people that I lead. And there's a big change that happens in terms of your energy and how you carry yourself because of that. Now, the other reason I think men are respected is because they're good at something. none of us are at the age, we're all good at things. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's things Emmanuel is very good at, Ernie, there's things you're very good at, and there's things I'm very good at. But we're not old enough. We haven't lived enough years. Even if we started something when we were 1 year old and we did it our whole lives, such as walking or talking, we're still not the best out there. We haven't devoted enough time to it. We haven't learned enough and applied enough to be the best at something. So part of it, none of us probably are going to or should at this point in our lives be getting that level of respect because we're that good at something. That's just the nature of the game. Like, and that's cool and that's fine. So what can you control? You can control how much you respect yourself and how you display that in terms of taking care of yourself, learning, applying, listening, seeking wisdom, not being on the side of the majority. I am a big believer that if you find yourself on the side of the majority, you're doing something wrong. So in terms of respect, if everyone's talking, be silent. If everyone's silent, find what needs to be said, not what you want to say. Okay. And refine your capacity to be okay with not being respected. Like, you earn respect by being at a point where, let's say you were like the epitome of anti-masculinity is not being strong or having muscles, or being able to get with women or having money. The epitome of anti-masculinity is no self-respect and not being okay with not being okay. And I can respect I can respect a man who can't get out of a wheelchair and hasn't worked out in a day in his life and hasn't read a book if he can sit there and take anything that someone says to him and he's okay with it because he knows who he is. That person will get my respect much faster than Chad in the corner who's like pumping iron because they're okay with not being okay. And I think from a situational perspective, you guys are also, you're still in college. The people you engage with are still mostly in college. The people I engage with are not. It's much easier to find respect among people who have the capacity to give respect. Most guys, not necessarily you guys, but most guys in college, they haven't even gone through the cognitive process of what do I want to be in life? How do I give respect to people? Why do I want respect? There's none of that. It's like the garbage pit from Star Wars that just gets churned back and forth of people with ideas and sleeping around and sports and great, like there's no respect to be given. So don't care about what the people at your school and your classmates do care about it. But I think you hear what I'm saying. Don't put pressure on getting respect from them, because if someone were to walk in a room who is somebody like you aspire to be, let's just say, Emmanuel, between you and me, if Andy Mineo walked in the room, Andy Mineo, Lecrae, and Derek Miner walked in the room and said, Emmanuel, I respect your art. I respect what you're doing. I love your hustle. Keep doing it. That's going to feel way better than some dudes at your school walking in the room. Dude, this is awesome. I respect you so much. Like, who are you going to care more about? And so that, to close all that out, a comment I wanted to make earlier in terms of relationships and connections and growing your community is focus on those quality connections that have the most impact. Okay. Like, I'd rather take one person, two people who have massive amounts of respect to give because they've achieved something in life versus 25 simpletons.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah. So would you say, like, let's say me and Emmanuel, based on like our mindset and the stuff, like our vision and stuff like that, we're definitely above our peers at the moment. Mm-hmm. So then so would you say like the way we act and the way we view things and I say interpret things is based on where we at, like mentally and stuff like that, or surrounding the people around us? And let's say like how we interpret things, such as like the respect thing, because I never thought of it the way you just explained it. So
I'm losing my train of thought for some reason. I had something that I think would have been a great answer for that. Respect. People respect results more than anything. And especially with the age of the people you're around the most right now, it's going to be a few more years until there's the results that they can tangibly see, that they would look to you and say, I respect this guy now. Like, let's say 3, 4, maybe 5 years until you're like, yeah, I've got the businesses, I've got the following, I've got the money, I've got a wife, and all these things. You're like, and that all started because of your mindset. People don't look at your mindset and say, oh, that's great, when they don't even understand what's going to come from it. But they can always look back and say, this is what came because of it. They can look back and say, now I want to follow. And it's kind of a sad thing when you know, and you guys both know full well that your mindsets are going to take you where you want to go in life. And so you would love to help other people understand that and respect you because of that. It's not going to happen until there's results there.
That's so true.
That's facts.
Yeah.
Just the nature of the game. But the people who have achieved those results, they know that it starts with mindset. And so they can look at someone like you and say, you guys have it figured out. It just hasn't manifested yet. Keep doing, keep That's growing, true. Keep pushing. I respect you because you have found the starting point and you're just, you're on the same path, just a slightly different step.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's really true. And I like how you put that in perspective about how when we have that mindset, people who aren't there just want to see results. But people who are there, they want to see your mindset and they're always there to help you out. I really like what you said there.
Yeah. Wow. That's a bar.
Yeah,
that's a bar. What you were talking about, how you just, going back earlier, you were talking about how you just cut it all out instead of like, oh, I kind of have to block these people out. You just cut it all out. Was that just a product of more so like the risk reward thing, or was it because you just knew what you wanted and how do, let's say somebody listening or even myself, how do I do that and not so much be afraid of it?
So it was a gradual process for me. And the final straw was moving away from my college city and the city I loved, which was Charlotte, and moving somewhere that I originally didn't want to move to, which is now St. Louis. So needless to say, it was a slow process, and it happened of the first thing that I noticed was the way I was living my life, not spiritually. Most of my friends were followers of Christ, not all of them, but the way I was living my life in terms of actions that I took on a daily basis did not align with anybody else that was around me. And slowly it started to be like, hey, do you want to hang out? No, sorry, I'm trying to, prospect some clients. Okay. And then those relationships started fading. And when they were very close to being entirely gone, I went through a panic mode of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all my friends. And then I moved past that of like, okay, let them go, right? You're going to find new ones. There's going to be people who are more impactful. And so that was the first step. The second step was a more intentional, I could start to be aware of like, this person just doesn't need to be in my life either anymore, or there's someone who wants to be in my life and they just don't need to be. Whether it's this season or it's perpetuity, they just don't need to be there. And so putting up some barriers, basically you're trying to create some space and then put up some barriers. And after that, you can go into, building your house and building your fortress, which is manifesting your vision and bringing it to life. And then you slowly start to expand those walls outwards. And it's like, hey, join me and come into my fortress and come in my life because you play a role in it and I can offer you some sort of value in return. Just, as a human being, not saying money, just good relationship, good community. And if they say no to that, leave the gates open, but put a guard there, right? Don't close the gates. The moment you become cynical and you close the gates, your city's going to crumble. And it's not going to take too long. Leave the gates open, give people the benefit of the doubt, have gratitude, and continue to just look to give. But don't let anybody just waltz right in. Have some sort of security. And in terms of how could you guys or a listener start, from a context of being in college, I think the first thing is to be okay with the idea of solitude. Great things happen for young men when they have a vision and they go into solitude and they can learn to just hustle and work on their own. And there's a lot of different types of solitude. Like you can feel fully alone surrounded by a crowd of 1,000 people. And that's important to understand, because your reality should be different than those other 1,000 people. If you really are different, if you really believe in your vision, you say, I'm not going to be like anyone here, then your reality, the way you see the world, is going to be different than they do. So you're going to feel alone. First step is be okay with that, because when you're okay with that, you start to live it out more. You more fully live it out, that you live out that calling. And what that does is it sends subconscious cues. Maybe it's the universe, maybe it's God, and other people start to recognize that. And so you call it vibrating at a higher frequency. I'm not using that as a buzzword or new agey. Just the best way to describe it is like your wavelength that you're on is now different, and you're going to attract a different crowd of people, and you're going to communicate with a different crowd of people. And you should be slowly working through those levels. And there's going to be key people on each level that decide to move with you, and that becomes your core team. That becomes those roots. Man, those roots are stronger than blood, and that's important to remember. So. First step, I'd say, is, unless it's crucial to the business you're running or putting food on the table, cut social media out of your life. So that's not necessarily applicable to you guys. You have a podcast, you have an audience, you're trying to reach people. I got to the point where, yes, I'm still doing music, not as much personally as I'd like to, but I was like, I can still grow an audience and not be on social media. I can still get playlisted. I can still email people. People can still find my music. And at the end of the day, if I really want to know I was the best musician I can be, then people should just love my music because they love my music. It shouldn't be I love his hair and his face, and I'm a 20-year-old girl and I think he's super hot. Like, no, it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be because of tweets that I'm putting out and they think I'm funny that they like my music. It should be because the music is good. So that was my rationalization for part of it. Or maybe it's just limiting exposure to influences and chatter that aren't rooted in the top 5 influences you want to have. Like, take a weekend for yourself. Like, Lord knows you give it to other people. Take it for yourself. Do a blackout 24 hours. It's just you and a pad of paper and the tasks you need to get done, and think and write it down and start to incorporate things like that into your life. And you're going to realize, oh my gosh, like, I don't need to be surrounded by these people. And I felt way better not being around them. And I think that's another thing. Maybe you've practiced it and have seen it happen in your life, but be aware of how you feel around people. If you feel instant gratification around being someone because they gas you up, I'm weary of those type of people. Like, I love giving compliments when I truly believe it, and they're fewer and far between as the days go by, because the people that I am around the most, they know that, like, and they respect that I know that I respect them, and they respect me because of that. But somebody flattering you, like, flattery is I don't know if you've read Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power, but flattery is one of the most deceitful things out there. Like, it's the fastest way to capture someone's heart and mind and tear them down. And people throw it around all the time, like, not to mention between men and women. Oh my gosh, babe, like, you cute. Like, oh wow, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Shut up. Like, first off, they don't want to hear that. And secondly, apply that to any other type of relationship. Like, what does it get you? If someone hit you up, Emmanuel, and was like, dude, I love your music, you're awesome, I don't know you, but you're freaking hype, dude, I want to work with you. Like, that sets a precedent that can't be followed, because if they do not follow through with that same energy, or something falls through, you're going to be the one hurt in that situation. Like, dude, is it me? So true. Like, did I mess this up? Like, or was he lying the whole time? Be weary of those people.
Yeah, it makes you question your self-confidence. What you said about being weary is, it's so important to distinguish those voices, filter out the voices, so that your wavelengths can be steady.
You want your highs to gradually get higher and higher, and you want your lows to get higher and higher. Like, I don't know if either of you do trading and technical analysis on asset appreciation, but when you get in a good bull run channel, there's going to be highs and lows, but every low is going to be higher than the past one. So it's going to go up and up and up and up and up. And you want your life to be like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, still like a part of me, just because we're at such a small school, and like I don't like there's a certain part of me that's just, I don't like being super negative with people, or not being super negative, but I guess we all have that fear of people not liking you, and just because I guess that's kind of like a hump I have to get past, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that also comes with age and like the people that you're surrounded with and stuff like that.
Hey, when you're okay with people not liking you, a lot changes. There's situations in life that to some people you just have to be a blatant a-hole. You just have to. Like, there's people that you have to deal with like that, otherwise they won't get what you're trying to say.
That's facts.
And in terms of being at a small school or not wanting to be rude to people, I think I'm pretty sure that we're all followers of Christ here. Well, we can look at the epitome of a great community builder. Jesus was sure as heck very short with some people, and he had a very small circle, and he was very selective with who he let around him.
True.
Like,
that's true.
People don't like that in the real world, because you're stuck up and arrogant, and you just think so much of yourself, and you don't care about other people enough. It's like, no, I care about other people so much that I will put myself in situations where I can bring some sort of value to them. And if they're not at a point where they're going to listen to anything I say, what is it worth me hanging out with them? The only thing that's going to come out of it is negativity for me. Like, usually the world doesn't work in reality, that, you know, Eeyore over here is gonna be changed by the super happy person. It's usually the super happy person is gonna be brought down by Eeyore, and like, that's reality.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had to take a moment because that's just as facts. Like, damn.
Hit you?
Yeah, it hit me. It hit me different.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Andrew.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Thanks for listening. It's been, I've been through it, and I've been at the point where I'm like, would just somebody please freaking listen, please. You have to go out into the world and prove that you're worth listening to.
Mm-hmm. You are definitely someone worth listening to, and that's why we brought you on here, because I just know people would benefit just listening to you. Like, the hour and 28 minutes, like you said so much content that's just so good. Like, you could literally write it on a t-shirt. That's how good it would be. You could literally write it on a t-shirt. I wanted to talk about, like, we already talked about, like, your kind of like your struggle and trusting yourself, but how did you really trust yourself during the struggle and, like, trust in your vision? Was it with God, or was it with the people that surrounded yourself with, or was it in your heart, or how did you really trust yourself? Like, and trust yourself and was like, this is for me, no matter what happens, it's gonna work out.
Of course, the God part, though that's more difficult than we like to. It's easier said than done, but quite literally, both through learning about the real world, opening my eyes, taking my blindfold off, and just life experiences. It's like, I came to the conclusion that there was nothing else I could trust in. Like, those people aren't going to provide for me. This isn't going to come through for me. They really genuinely don't care if I win or lose. In fact, there's probably a lot more people out there who would rather you lose than win, because most people still have that, you know, I win, you lose mindset, which is another roadblock you have to overcome to be very successful. There is an abundance of success for everyone out there, but I just quite simply, I looked around for months on end, and I said, there's literally nothing else out there that I can truly trust and believe in except the work that I can put in with my own hands. So it was less of I was convicted of the vision for sure, but I wasn't convicted of the trust. My brother says it best, like, never overestimate your ability to be wrong, and to break something, to ruin something. But it was just a necessity. I'm like, I can't put my trust in this client that they're going to pay. I can't put my trust that this person is true to their word. I can't put my trust that this person is who they say they are. What can I trust? I was like, well, you know what? I can wake up in the morning and I can work hard and I can believe in what I'm doing. And it just kind of was like I slowly eliminated all the other options and I was left with this one that I was like, well, maybe I should have started here in the first place. I would have been, half a year ahead.
Yeah.
This is like the type of people like we need in our group, in our circle, you know what I mean? Like someone like Andrew and you. Yeah. This is the type of people like I want in my group. Like, and it's so hard to find people like that just because not so much of like the location, but more so like that's why I asked that question of like, is it because we're so developed mentally or not developed mentally, but we're on like a different wavelength at the moment. It's difficult to find other people like that. And it's more so I've just learned like I ask that question a lot, but it's more so you just have to learn through experience and it's like almost trial and error. Like honestly, that's how you learn with
life is.
That's just people.
Throw your spaghetti against the wall and wait for something to stick. People will tell you over and over again in business and personal life, whatever it is, they'll tell you, don't do that. That's inefficient. But there's seasons in life where you just have to throw everything against the wall and over and over and over again until something sticks. And that's okay. Like, there is trial and error. You can learn from other people. If you've learned from somebody that there's a certain type of spaghetti that sticks better for the type of paint that you have on your wall, listen to them, go find that spaghetti, but there's still going to be trial and error. Like, you just got to try it.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's super true.
And I feel like people nowadays there's so much information that it's just easy to get caught up in. Like Google just shows you, I don't know how many million answers or 1,000 answers in like 0.5 seconds, but everybody just wants the answer so quick. But it's more so you just have to learn it and go through that experience, and it's much needed. And they don't teach you. You don't see a lot of it on social media. Like, sure, you see like you always see the end. Yeah, you always see where Drake is, but you never saw him on like Degrassi or like his come up or like him rapping or anything like that.
Same thing with Logic. You never saw him sleeping on the mattress. You never saw him struggling to work 9 to 5s every day. You always see the end result.
Yeah, you always see.
It's so important, especially in the social media age, that we need to share those experiences to tell people this is real life.
Well, those guys didn't get to their end result by caring about the end result. They got to the end result by caring about the process and loving just showing up and doing it every day. I mean, I sleep on a bare mattress in my closet, guys. Like, and I've been blessed to see some big wins recently. Like, I live like an animal because I love it. Like, there's nothing I'd rather be doing differently in my life right now. I mean, I'm not content. I'm still driving very, very hard towards things, but I'm like, as you start to really do what you feel like you were called to do and what you love to do the most, you start to forget about these temporary things that the world tells us we should care about. Like, there's just less out there that becomes enticing when you're doing more of what you truly want to do. And it's not about having anything outside of the freedom to do it, the time to do it, and the general know-how or the capacity to learn enough so that you can actually do it well in a way that is satisfactory to you, and it's satisfactory to others, and it's satisfactory to the Lord. Like, that's the equation to a fulfilled life, not necessarily a ultra wealthy life, but a fulfilled life.
Mm-hmm.
That's an amazing answer, Andrew. Yo, one last time, I just want to thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with us, answering our questions, bringing up these new topics to discuss and kind of expand our mind upon. Is just amazing, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have other stuff you want to talk about?
No cap. We were in the kitchen. He's like, dude, Andrew said he would come on the podcast. Dude, I was like, no, dude. I was like, okay, let's go. And he texted me and I was like, let's go. And like all caps. Like, I was hyped. We're blessed.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're blessed. Yeah. Andrew, what kind of conversations are you having with like your circle and like your group and like your girlfriend? Because me and Emmanuel the other day, I told him that I had to transfer but I would be here for his graduation just because like I can't, like I just need somewhere else to grow. And I told him, like, the next time I see you, these are the things I want to see you be doing, and these are the things that I'm going to be doing as well, and these are the things I want to see myself in the next 10 years. And he told me the things he wants to see himself do in the next 10 years. Are those like the kind of things conversations you have about with your friends and stuff like that?
Yes and no. There was a season of that, and when it comes to the business ventures I'm involved in, most of the times I'm the visionary behind it. So I do get to talk a lot about what are we going to do and what are we going to do, and then there's the aspect of what are we doing now. And I've seen a big shift. After you, like let's just say, like, most people, guys in our society, like, they want to break free of that 9 to 5. Once you've broken free of the 9 to 5, the conversations you have should shift from, what you want to be doing to what you're doing now and how you're going to make it better. So you go from that planning mindset and this aspiration mindset to more of a building mindset. And there's subtle things that change, and there's a lot of things that stay the same. So the conversations I have are very much rooted around, like, from a business perspective, like how can we grow this by 25%, and how can we add in 3 new clients here and hit these metrics and add a new team member, and what does it look like for the next step for next quarter. Like, that's most of my life right now. In terms of conversations with my girlfriend, there's a lot about, and that's the season that we're still in the planning phase. Like, we're still in the vision phase. It's like, what do we want our lives to really look like? What do we want to build together? Where is there room right now to work towards that? Yes, lots of gratitude for what we do have, and general maintenance, just general communication and relationship stuff. So there's 2 different sides to it, and I think between you two, something I want to encourage you is, if though you may be transferring Ernie, like, take the time and use the resources to continue to connect in person. Like, 2 of my closest relationships and 2 of my business partners, like, I will see them every month regardless. If I can't see them every month, it'll be every other month, and like, I will spend money and we'll fly them out and we'll go do things together, because yes, we see each other on the screen every day and we stay in good communication, but there's so much power and value by spending physical time with other men and growing and doing hard things together. Like, go for a ruck trip somewhere, like in the Rockies. Like, go do some cool stuff together that makes you physically grow and experience hardship. I think men grow the most when they experience hardship together, and that's also where most of the respect comes from. Because when you can look at someone when they're at their weakest and still see them pushing through, you're like, wow, I've seen this person at their lowest and their weakest, and that's allowed me to see the strength that they're bringing to life. And there's just a lot of value in that. So I would encourage you, please don't stop doing the podcast. You can obviously do these remote, as we're seeing right now. You can do them. You can do them in person every quarter, and record like a whole season over a few days. Like, there's lots of different ways to do it, but keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks for that, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to talk about with him? I kind of like, I obviously have more stuff I want to talk about, but I mean, I don't want you to like not talk about anything.
I mean, it's all good. I know that just from hearing your excitement, I know that you really want to, speak. And so I'm totally fine with it. Just.
So you're saying he should hit me up to work with me?
Ooh, hey, yo. I mean, if you want to, you can hit me up.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm broke, but I'll save some money.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm broke, but I'll save some money.
And on that note, Andrew, I just want to thank you, so much for all of the wisdom and questions that you've answered for us, and all the great discourse that we've had through this almost 2-hour-long podcast, man. But it was well worth it, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was definitely worth a lot.
Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Since I'm not on social media, I was going to say, if anybody wants to, any of your followers ever wanted to reach out to me or ask a question or whatever, they can shoot me an email at ap@renegadesx.com. And that's renegades as in the word renegade with an S at the end and then an X.com. So
Renegade. Okay.
Well, again, thank you so much. It was definitely worthwhile, and I appreciate all the insight and knowledge you gave us, especially all the tips and stuff like that. And especially how you put everything in perspective. This is definitely a worthwhile conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you guys. Have a blessed day.
You too.
Sweet. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
And on that note, if you want to follow the Blindfold Off podcast on Twitter, you can follow us at Blindfold Off Pod. And on Instagram, you can follow us at Blindfold Off Podcast.
Follow them. You got to follow them.
Yeah. Andrew Puckett endorsement.
Andrew Puckett endorsement. And you can follow me at _E Armenta on Instagram.
And you can follow me at Emmanuel LKD on Instagram and all the other social platforms.
And listen to his new song, The Great Gatsby, Fire.
It's probably 7 weeks old by this point when this episode comes out. But hey, check it out. Run up the streams.
All right, on that note, we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode.
And we are out. Peace.